Fellow citizens, let me say that I'm truly honored to have this engagement with you in Doha this evening. I bring you greetings from friends, your fellow citizens in Kenya, many people who wish you well. This evening, on behalf of your fellow citizens in Kenya, the government of Kenya, and my family, tunawaletea salamu nyingi sana, and we wish you well. I must admit that it is true that I had scheduled to leave this evening. But amongst the things that persuaded me to extend by a day, there are many things, but one of them was when I looked at my schedule and I was told that I was going to speak to you, and I thought, since you are a significant, and Omar has said it very well, that you are not just people in diaspora, you're Kenya. And because Kenya is my business, I thought I should stay behind and have an introduction with you. I also must admit that I have been to many diaspora meetings. I have never found one as organized as this one. Honestly, I have never been to a diaspora meeting with clarity, with focus, and with great organization like the one I see here. Congratulations to you guys. Maybe my ambassador is the one responsible. But I'm told it's not him. I'm told it's you guys. The team here in Doha, the leaders, the diaspora leaders here, congratulations. You really, I'm very proud of you guys. You have spoken to the core issues that you think are of concern to you, and you have spoken in a very profound way. You have actually spoken to how we can solve them. Not how big the problems are, but how possible the solutions can be achieved. And therefore, it's a very positive conversation. Let me just say a few things, then I can open the floor for an interaction or a conversation. It is true that in the last election, I did make a commitment that we will have a much more robust and a better engagement with our diaspora. And it is the reason why I set up a State Department for Diaspora Affairs. And I got the right person to do it. Rosalind Jogu has done a good job in the diaspora docket. She's been with me, she's been ahead of me in many places, trying to work on matters consular, issues that have come up, repatriating Kenyans whenever we are in difficult situations in different parts of the world. I remember the latest in Lebanon and many other hotspots around the world. So I am very proud that the Diaspora Department has created a better relationship between Kenyans in diaspora and Kenyans back at home. I am prepared to see what additionally we can do to better the engagement, to do what we are doing in a better way to serve you better. And I hope before we conclude this meeting, Rosalind will be here so that she can speak in detail on what the Diaspora Department is doing. Let me also say that back at home, we have been deliberate about matters diaspora. The National Employment Authority, and the chair, I saw her somewhere in town today, was a very convoluted place when we came into office. We had many very bad people operating as employment agencies. What are those people called again, Mutua? Recruitment agencies. And we had very crooked, very unprofessional people. So we have had to change the registration process for recruitment agencies. And we have had to disappoint many people because recruitment agencies that had a track record of doing the wrong thing, we've had to deregister. How many again, Mutua? Almost 600 recruitment agencies. We have had to deregister them because they were doing the wrong thing. They were picking money from people. They were sending people with, tourist visa. Many of the complaints that we got were because of the recruitment agencies doing the wrong things. We've since created a multi-agency team that now looks at the whole exercise of Kenyans being recruited outside Kenya in a holistic manner. We have gone through the motions to make sure that all the job opportunities from every part of the world are posted on a government website where everybody can see, so that if it is not in the government website, then you know that job is actually fake. We have also streamlined the processes to make sure that if you're looking for a passport, we've reduced the time for people who have a letter of employment from waiting for 2-3 months. Now you can get a passport in 2-3 days. We've created a green channel for the people like yourselves who have a job outside Kenya so that we can encourage, more recruitment agencies, more Kenyans to apply. And we've also, apart from creating a green channel for passports, we have also found a mechanism where Kenyans who do not have the money to pay for tickets, we're now finding a way with our national youth fund, youth fund. And we are also taking it now to Wezo Fund so that they can find money which they refund after some time to buy themselves tickets and find their way to jobs. I have also been very clear on making sure that we do not send Kenyans to countries that we do not have bilateral labor agreements. And it is the reason why under the leadership of Musalia Mudavadi and the State Department for Diaspora and Ministry of Labor, we are signing more bilateral labor agreements. We are upgrading those that already exist. Like already there is a conversation between the government of Kenya and the state of Qatar on making sure that we now increase the number of skilled workforce that comes into this country. We're doing the same in Saudi Arabia. We're lucky we've done this again last year with Germany, with Austria. I had a conversation with the President of Hungary again today, and we are looking at opportunities there. He will be visiting Kenya sometime early next year for us to conclude that process. So our aim is to have bilateral labor agreements with at least 19 or 25 countries where we are certain that we have a firm government-to-government engagement that ensures that citizens of Kenya in those countries have the legal protection of both the government of Kenya and the host country government to make sure that we protect our citizens. And so, to you people in Qatar, I am very happy when I landed at the airport. Many people, Bari Mheshimiwa. I saw many people at the conference facility. I was wondering whether I was in Nairobi or whether I was in Nairobi or I was in Qatar. But you feel a sense of pride if you see citizens of your country, in different places of the world. And specifically to you people in Qatar, I must say congratulations. You are doing a wonderful job, and you have our support. Let me also say that it is our intention to support you on 3 other areas. We are working as a government to see how we can reduce the cost of you sending money back home, remittance. We know that it costs anywhere between 5 to 10% of the money you send. And if you look at the amount of money that comes to Kenya, it's about $5 billion. If you do 5% of $5 billion, it's colossal. It's huge money. It can make a big difference. So I did instruct the central bank to work with the International Association of Remittance so that we can find, much more cost-effective mechanisms of you being able to send your money back home. The second issue we are working on is how to support, the many people who come, and because of different customs, different cultures, they get disoriented and sometimes end up into depression. I'm very happy that you have a team here who is providing psychological support to Kenyans here. We're trying to mainstream that into policy so that we can find support through our embassies to support Kenyans. I think Rosemary would have been better placed to explain because she has briefed me on what they are doing and how we need to mainstream that, provide more safe houses for people to, if people are in need or they are affected in one way or another, they can find a safe place where we can assist them, even as we find mechanisms of how to support them either here or to support them to go back home. So we are still assessing. I think there are now a couple of safe houses in different countries. We're trying to expand that footprint so that we can support more Kenyans and their families in the diaspora. And finally, we also want to see how we can support you invest back home and help you structure that investment. We are in the final stages of a diaspora bond on how people in the diaspora can support Kenya with a diaspora bond that also gives you an investment income. So again, I think this is some of the outcomes of what we had as the diaspora conference that we had in Nairobi, I think a year and a half ago. And we are on the final stages through cabinet, and then finally we will create a framework that you can participate. And that is aside from all the other things that we are doing, including the affordable housing program, where instead of you now struggling to send money to some contractor or your relative, you can now buy affordable housing. Boma yangu #832 star, is it *823#, buy a house. You don't have to struggle with who is the contractor and who is what. You have the undertaking of the government of Kenya that whatever house you buy, you will get it. Different from if you send to your friend or your relative, you will find that they will keep sending you pictures of the neighbor's house. I think there are many experiences of that kind, right? So again, there are those opportunities which you can tap into, and we can all take that forward. That is one thing I wanted to discuss with you, the issues about diaspora. I know there are many other issues that you would want us to discuss, which I will be here to listen to you later. The other thing I wanted to tell you was the status of where we are as a country. I know many of you read stories in social media, misinformation, disinformation, and everything in between. But just so that you know, I will tell you 5 things. Number 1, our economy. Our economy has, since the last 3 years, the economy has stabilized. Inflation has come down from 9.6 to 4.6 this month. Our dollar exchange rate has strengthened from 165 to now 129, 128. I don't know whether that is good or bad for you guys. Certainly it's good for our economy. Our foreign exchange reserves have grown from about $5.7 billion in 2022 to $12 billion now. It's actually doubled. And therefore, we can sort out any dollar issues. There are people who could not remit their earnings to foreign countries. Now they can do it with a lot of ease. So I can confidently tell you that our economy is now stable. For those of you who follow the international financial news, Kenya was among 6 countries that everybody thought was going to default in 2022. In fact, I remember meeting Antonio Guterres, and he was telling me, what will you do, Mr. President, when your country defaults? But the good news is that by God's grace, with all the things that we did in between, cut back on this, removing subsidies on many of the things that were there, of the 6 countries that were billed to default, 5 defaulted, Kenya did not. And if you follow, IMF released a report 3 months ago. Kenya's economy now has passed Ethiopia has passed Angola. Kenya is now the 6th largest economy in Africa. If you follow news, our Nairobi Securities Exchange was the best security exchange in Africa last year. So I have been to the Nairobi Securities Exchange, I think 5 times, because I wanted to build confidence in the Securities Exchange, because it is one avenue. The capital markets are one avenue that we can use to raise development resources aside from all the other areas. So on the economic front, I am very confident about Kenya's future. The numbers don't lie, they are there. What I am telling you, you can go into any platform and you will find the numbers there. In fact, our governor of Central Bank, Mr. Thuge, was voted the best governor of Central Bank in Africa because of what has been done. So that's on the economic front. So just to allay fears that may be spread by the different media. Number 2 is that we are stabilizing our food security. I know many of you know that in 2022, we had people in the streets with superiors on their heads because the price of unga had gone to 250. Those people have since left, just for your information, because we have intervened. We have changed the framework of our approach to the agricultural sector. We've moved away from subsidizing consumption. We moved it to supporting production, reducing the cost of fertilizer, making sure that we have available seeds. We did a big program on making sure that we use data to run government programs. We've registered 7.1 million farmers. We now have data on how many farmers are growing tea, how many farmers are growing sugarcane, how many farmers are doing coffee, avocados, wheat, rice, and we are engaging them on the basis of correct information. We've also digitized all the supply of seeds and fertilizer. Today, you cannot just walk into a shop to buy fertilizer. You have to be a registered farmer because we are subsidizing that fertilizer. Since then, we have removed cartels, brokers and characters who are distorting, our programs. I know you are aware that in one place in Western Kenya, I had to tell some notorious brokers, mambo ni matatu. I don't know whether you remember that. Because they were so incorrigible, so daring, that they had taken hostage a whole sugar sector. Now I can confidently tell you we have brought in the private sector in our sugar industry. I was on Thursday and Friday and Saturday, I was in Western Kenya, in Busia, in Kakamega, in Vihiga, and I can confidently tell you that our sugarcane farmers, for the first time, got bonus last year, and we will have bonus again this year. For the first time in Kenya's history. And we moved our sugar production from about 600 metric tons to 815 metric tons. It is our plan that by next year we will do 1 million tons, and by 2028 we will be a net exporter of sugar from Kenya. And that goes also with coffee. For those of you who have coffee in different parts of Kenya, the prices of coffee have gone up from an average of 60, 70 shillings a kilo. This year we were at 130, 140, 110 at the very least. And we are continuing with the reform of that sector, because initially, you know, the licensing regime facilitated people to engage in curtailing the sector. You found one person is a farmer, he is registered as a broker, he is also registered as a miller, he is also registered as a buyer at the Nairobi Coffee Exchange. And therefore, there was an incestuous relationship that undermined farmers. Today, we have straightened that space, and that is why we have better prices of coffee. Same thing with tea and all the other areas. In short, what I can tell you is that we have an import bill, food import bill of about 500 billion Kenya shillings, $4 billion. Just imagine. Every year, importing sugar, edible oil, maize, wheat, rice. So it is my intention to cut down that import bill by 50% by 2027. We want to reduce it by 250 billion Kenya shillings. And we are on course, because this year we reduced the imports of maize by 70%. We reduced the imports of sugar by 80%. We are now working on rice and wheat, and then edible oil is the one on the line. So again, we want to transform the agricultural sector so that instead of us importing 500 billion Kenya shillings, we should be exporting more. Let me say 3 final things. You're aware that I did make a commitment on matters to do with health. And I know you know how health operates, because now you stay in this country. We've had to change the whole health infrastructure in Kenya. I thought I was going to reform the National Health Insurance Fund. It was not possible to reform it because it was too rigid, and therefore we had to tear it down and build it from scratch. So we went to Parliament, took a bit of time, but we now have 5 pieces of legislation. From one law, we have now 5 pieces of legislation that undertake our health infrastructure program, moving it from a health infrastructure that was heavily tilted towards those who had jobs and those who had means, to a universal health coverage where everybody is on board. As a result, we now have increased, we've done 4 things actually in that sector. Number 1, we have changed the health provision structure. We did register all facilities. We did an assessment of all the facilities, and we want to sort out 4 issues. We want to set out, number 1, making sure that every Kenyan is registered. As I talk to you, 27.2 million Kenyans are now registered under Social Health Authority, up from 8 million We now have 3.5 times more Kenyans registered, from 8 million to 27.2 million. It is our intention that in the next 6 months, we should have 30 million Kenyans. We should have actually reached universal, because that does not include dependents and children and others. So, number one. Number two is to change how equipment is delivered to our hospitals. In the past, we used to buy equipment, and because you don't have a big financial outlay, you then end up buying very limited equipment. We've since structured. Now we work with manufacturers. We don't have to pay for the equipment. We have what we call fee for service. We have equipment delivered to our hospitals, and we only pay when we use that equipment to the manufacturer. That was possible because they looked at our health infrastructure, how we had registered Kenyans and how they were going to get paid, and they were satisfied. I was, for example, in Butere on Thursday. I was on Thursday in Butere. This small level 4 hospital in Butere, and you had CT scan there, you had all manner of equipment there. Ordinarily, you would never find a CT scan in Butere. If you were lucky, you would find it in the referral hospital in Eldoret or Kakamega. But because of the new framework we have created, it is possible for us to deploy the most sophisticated equipment in every hospital in Kenya. On Monday, or was it Tuesday, I was in Nakuru. Again, we were having the latest equipment delivered to the referral hospital in Nakuru. For those of you who follow my social media account, you will see. So we are changing the framework of delivery of health. And finally, is how we deliver health commodities. If you listen to many of the people at home, people normally complain about there is no dawa, hakuna dawa. Mwananchi wa kawaida anasema hakuna dawa. So we need to solve that hakuna dawa problem. And we have found the reason how to solve it. We've now given a better framework to KEMSA. We've decided that we deliver health commodities, medicines direct to health centers and dispensaries instead of taking them to stores at the county and all the other places. So we have built a better health infrastructure. It is a commitment that I made, and it is a commitment that I'm very proud that today is becoming a reality. And finally, he's just mentioned to you about education. I saw Omar mentioned about education here. Education is very important. For those of you who follow events at home, we had 4 different issues with education. We had CBC. Many parents were complaining they were doing homework up to midnight. They were being told to make cars at night, and many other stories. And so we have straightened CBC. Now there is clarity on what happens. Number 2, we had a big shortage of teachers. I can confidently tell you we have hired the largest number of teachers in Kenya's history. By January, we will have hired 100,000 teachers in 3 years. That is ordinarily government hires 100,000 teachers in 20 years. But we've done it in 3 years because I'm a very strong believer that if we want to equalize the fortunes of all our children, from poor or rich families, education must be accessible to everybody. We also had challenges with classrooms. We've built We sourced money from the World Bank. We work with our own resources, with members of parliament. I must commend them. We built 23,000 new classrooms, and we are on the way building another 1,600 laboratories that will bring children, especially from informal settlements, rural areas that ordinarily would not have access to a laboratory or sufficient classrooms or enough teachers. That is the ecosystem we are sorting. We have also made sure that our universities, for those of you who understand what was the challenge with our universities, we had many universities, Nairobi University, Kenyatta University, Egerton University. They were paying lecturers half pay because there wasn't enough money. So we changed the funding model. We now have what we call student-centered funding model that ensures that we assess every student to make sure that no child, especially those from vulnerable backgrounds, miss school. We have since increased scholarships and loans to make sure that children from vulnerable backgrounds get up to 90% loan and scholarship so that we carry them along. So I just thought I should mention some of the things that we are doing back at home. And then finally, let me talk about jobs. I did make a commitment on jobs because we spend 680, in fact, this year, it is 702 billion Kenya shillings on education. 700 billion shillings on education. It is important that as we spend that amount of money in education, we also think about what happens to the pipeline when these people who are in ECDs, primary, secondary, college, university, when they get out of the pipeline, what happens to them? And that is why we came up with 4 pipelines for how to create jobs. And we wanted to be deliberate. Sometimes there is a conversation about creating jobs, but it is not certain. It is not deliberate. Unless you drill down to detail, you are unlikely to have any impact. And that is the reason why we were thinking, and we rolled out 4 different interventions on matters to do with creating jobs. Number 1 is our housing program. I know many of you, not you, many people in Kenya were asking me, what is wrong with you? Who told you we need houses? But you see, any country that needs to stimulate the economy, they look at public infrastructure that creates, that is labor intensive and uses it, whether it's America, whether it is Europe, that's what they do. And again, for your information, housing was a program that has been there with us. It was there in the KANU manifesto. It was there in the NACA manifesto. It was there in the NASA manifesto. It was there in the Jubilee manifesto. It was there in the Azimio manifesto. It was there in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. It's a permanent feature in all the manifestos. But it was difficult to implement because it's not easy. Just for context, my brother, President Uhuru, and I, we had the Big 4 in 2017. And one of the Big 4 was housing. And we did everything because it is the right thing to do, and all of us agree. So when we were elected, we wanted to do housing. I remember very well, we went to Parliament, we passed the law, we created the fund, we created the levy. In fact, President Uhuru told me he knew of somebody called Charles Hinga, who was in South Africa, and who was a good expert in these matters of housing. We brought him. We looked for him. We brought him to Kenya. We met him, Principal Secretary for Housing. And then when everything was ready, and we started to collect the levy, and then there was noise. No, this levy, I don't know. These ones are complaining, those ones are complaining. Maandamano hapa, nini pale, nini kelele. Then President Uhuru called me and told me, William, si wewe uko na nyumba? Nikamwambia ndio, mimi niko na nyumba. Sasa hii kelele hii tunapigiwa ni ya nini? Kama hao watu hawataki manyumba, achana na hawa. So our housing plan collapsed. But you see, the irony is that that was 2017. Come 2022, housing was in the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, mine. Housing was in the manifesto of the opposition, then Azimio, complete with 1.5% levy. Si mimi kwa bahati Mungu amenijalia nimeshinda uchaguzi. Housing si ndio hiyo iko hapo. Sasa ule Hinga was still PS, so I told him, you are not going anywhere. Sasa tufanye hii kitu this time. Akaniangalia, akaniambia, hii utawezana na makelele. So the keleles came. I was given new names, Sakayo, I don't know who. But I stood my ground. Because it was the right thing to do 40 years ago. It is still the right thing to do now. Because, let me give you an example. I invited the president of Singapore. He came to Kenya in 2023. Singapore was exactly like Kenya. Not even exactly. Singapore was actually a slum like Kibera in 1963. Just imagine. Singapore, if you look at the pictures, and he told me that they actually used force to get people to move from the slums to go and occupy houses on the 10th floor and 15th floor and 30th floor. For Kenya, we didn't have to use force. So he told me housing is something that you must do. It's not easy, but it changes a nation. Just look at the difference. They implemented housing in 1964. Today, Singapore is a first world country. 95% of their population are home owners. The opposite is that in Kenya, we did not implement. We are a third world country. 7 million Kenyans live in slums. Do you see the difference? So, we're implementing housing. In fact, I think my team has some pictures on what we are doing in Kenya. Today, we are building 230,000 units. 230,000 units in every town and townships in Kenya. I mean, if there is one thing that is going to change the destiny of our nation, it's housing. If you go to Mandera, you go to Wajir, you go to Kitui, you go to Mombasa, you go to Nyeri, you go to Murang'a, you go to Eldoret, you go to Kisumu, you go to Siaya, everywhere. I was on Friday, I was in Funyula. Do you know where Funyula is? Unajua mahali Funyula iko? Eh? Funyula is in Busia. You know? And we have a 10-story affordable housing program in Funyula. We are doing another 14-story in Busia town. We are doing another one in Malaba. And on and on and on and on. Just before I show you the clip, what is happening? We are now hiring close to 600,000 people. Engineers, architects, quantity surveyors, electricians, plumbers, masons, carpenters, and everybody in between. We have people working in the steel industry, in the cement industry, in our quarries, and everybody in between. By next year, housing will be hiring 1 million people. So, apart from decent housing, apart from helping us with reducing on land fragmentation, apart from stimulating our economy, housing is creating opportunities for jobs. And these are only 230,000 units. We have a shortage of 2.5 million housing units, and it is growing. So we will be at this housing for the next 20, 25 years before we can stabilize. And you know what? We have built this whole big program. Now the contracts we have signed is 600 billion. How much? 600 billion. Housing, markets, hostels, and all of it is our own money. We haven't borrowed from the World Bank. We have not borrowed from nobody. And for your information, if I were to go and borrow 600 billion shillings from the World Bank, I would live in Washington for 10 years to get it. I would need 10 years of letter writing and begging. But we have mobilized our own domestic resources, and Kenya is changing. The skyline of every town is changing, and we have many people working. You know, so I don't mind the names. I don't mind the names. So long as Kenya gets transformed, I'm missing a problem. Sindio? Yeah. That's how nations are changed. Nations are not changed by small thinking, you know, being politically correct all the time, you know. You are waiting what will become a coffee throughout. You can never change a nation that way. That is one. Number two, we are expanding our digital footprint. We now have Ajira centers, we now have ICT hubs, we have BPOs, business process outsourcing. In fact, Teleperformance, the largest BPO in the world, is now set up camp in Nairobi. Is that correct, Thigo? Yeah? At that place in Two Rivers. They've set up a huge facility there. So, and we now have close to 180,000 people working in that ecosystem of digital jobs, because we have streamlined the law around there to make sure it works. That's our second pillar on creating jobs. And we now want to take ICT hubs to every ward in Kenya. Members of Parliament, we have allocated them resources to build an ICT hub in every ward in Kenya so that we have 200-300 young people working, getting skilled so that they can work globally. And then number 3 is what I've just discussed with you, creating a pipeline for Kenyans who want to work abroad, by streamlining visa, making sure that we have a transparent process, signing bilateral labor agreement with different countries, and doing what we must to make sure that we facilitate the diaspora the way we are doing. In the last 3 years, 420,000 Kenyans have joined the diaspora. We now have clear numbers on who is working where, what is their pay, and what is their status. I'm very happy that close to maybe 10,000 of you, between 10 and 15,000 according to Mutua, have joined the diaspora in Qatar in the last 3 years. And we will now scale up because we have removed what were bottlenecks. Our intention is to triple the number of people working in Qatar as we do it elsewhere globally, because we still have opportunities. Wherever we have an opportunity, we will drive. And finally, on that subject of job creation is the whole ecosystem we are building with special economic zones, county aggregation and industrial parks, and the negotiations we are carrying out to open new markets for Kenya. We've just concluded discussions with China to open the Chinese market for Kenyan products. We operationalized the European market. We signed the economic partnership agreement with Europe, 26 countries, last year, June. Now we have a whole European market open to Kenyan products. We have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area market, and we are engaging the U.S. to extend AGOA and to also negotiate a bilateral labor agreement between Kenya and the United States. So all these markets are for products from Kenya. Agro-processing, value addition, manufacturing, industrialization, that is the trajectory we are using to create new opportunities for work. So I just thought of, putting this picture to you as citizens of Kenya, so that you know the status of your country and you know where to participate and how to contribute. Finally, before we do this clip, let me conclude by saying that what we have done in the last 3 years is okay, but it's not good enough. It is not good enough. Why do I say so? Kenya is a third world country by mistake. We shouldn't be a third world country. We are not made of third world country stuff. We are supposed to be playing in a different league. Do you understand? Yes. We can move Kenya from a third world country to a first world country in our lifetime, if we do a couple of things right. And I have put a proposition to us, to the people of Kenya, on how to move from a third world country to a first world country in the next 25 to 30 years. China did it, Korea did it, other countries, Malaysia did it, we can do it. Looking at what we have done, I am very persuaded that we can move this country to a first world country. we need to do three things, in my opinion. Number one, we need to bring under production another 2.5 million acres of land, agricultural land, so that we finish with importing food and we export to the markets we have already negotiated. We need to build at least 50 mega dams, huge dams, High Grand Forks Dam, Soin Koru Dam, and we have a list of them. They've been in our books for the last 20 years. We have all of them in our books. But we haven't done it because we haven't thought of how to do it. I have put a proposition on how we can do it. We need 1.5 trillion shillings. That's just about maybe 10, 12 billion dollars. We can raise that money. So to raise here housing, 600 billion. We've raised it. But this one we can raise even without any levy. We'll raise it to tatumia tu akili. Tuache ujinga. Tutumia akili. Mnanielewa? That's what we need to do. And we are going to do it, not too far from now. I discussed it with the Emir of Qatar today on how we can create that partnership, because that's number one. Number two, we need to generate energy. We need to generate electricity. As I talk to you, we have 2,300 megawatts. The whole country. How much? 2,300. Tulienda na kimbelembele yetu tukaenda tukanegotiate na Microsoft na G42 tukanegotiate. You know, when I went for the trip, I went to the United States with Biden. So we signed an agreement there between G42 of UAE, Microsoft of America, and Kenya to establish data centers. Sindio? Sasa wakati nimerudi nyumbani haya tumeanza data center. Tukaambiwa one data center requires 1,000 megawatts. Na tuko na 2,300. Tuko na 2,300 megawatts the whole country. So ili tufanye hiyo data center, we have to shut down half the country. Unaona sasa? So we need to have, if we have to industrialize, if we have to engage in manufacturing, we need minimum 10,000 megawatts of energy. And we need it like yesterday. Today, in Kenya, jioni between 5 and 10 p.m., we have to do load shedding. We have to shut off some areas to be able to power other areas because our energy haitoshi. I was in Ethiopia last month. Tulienda kufungua dam hapo. That one dam is generating 5,400 megawatts. 2.5 times our whole power in Kenya. One dam. Mnaona si tuko na shida? Tuko na problem. So we have to. And we need about 1.2 trillion to do it. And we will find the money to do it. Mnanielewa? Yes. Otherwise, we will be left behind. Huyu Thiko huyu is my technology advisor. AI, if we are left behind, tutakwama milele. So we cannot afford to be left behind this time. And AI is a huge consumer of energy. So we have to. And I have to tell you this, Simuliniambia, you are Kenya abroad. Yes, I have to tell you, because you have a stake in this. And then number 3, we have to invest in infrastructure. We need to extend the SGR from Naivasha to Uganda. We need minimum another 10,000 kilometers of tarmac so that you people can get home whenever you're going home.